I'm a little bit late with my predictions for the 2024 French Open, but I wanted to wait until the qualifiers were placed, and I did want to watch Djokovic's semifinal match in Geneva before making my picks. But let's get right into it, and we're going to start with the women's draw. So just like last year, I filled out the draw for both the men and the women, and I'm going to keep tabs of this. I'm not going to go through the whole draw today, just from the quarters on. But on Instagram, I'm gonna make a story every day and tell you how many I got right, how many I got wrong. And so if you don't follow me on Instagram, please do. Also, I did a live on Instagram with Eliza Westcoat yesterday. I recommend you check out that interview. We talked about the French Open, we talked tennis fashion. It was fun. All right, so let's start with the top half of the draw. I have Swiatek against Collins in the quarters. Collins has been playing unbelievably well. A lot of people are wondering, why is she playing Strasbourg? She's been playing well in the clay court season, making it in the semifinals of Rome. And I think Daniela really wants to make the year-end championships, and she's going to be back in the top 10 once the rankings come out on Monday. And she's in the final of Strasbourg playing Madison Keys. So to me right now, Danielle Collins is the fourth best player in the world. I'll put her behind Rybakina, Sabalenka, and Swiatek. But anybody else that comes her way, I think Collins is blowing off the court, and she's a little bit unlucky with the draw. As we look down here, I have Goff against Ostapenko in the other quarterfinal. I think Coco has a favorable draw. She's got qualifier in the first round, then Zidansek in the second round, Yastremska in the third round, then Linette in the fourth. This is kind of a tough little section right here with a lot of good players, but I have Linette coming through. And then on the bottom, Jabeur has been struggling with confidence. I do think that Ostapenko makes it through this section. So in the quarterfinal on the top half, I have Swiatek taking out Collins, and I have Goff taking out Ostapenko. Goff is a great clay court player. She has made the final at the French Open before, and I feel like once she gets through those first 2-3 matches, her confidence is going to grow and she's going to start playing better and better. All right, now let's get to the bottom portion of the women's draw, and my intuition is that Kirstea is going to make it through the quarters. It's a tough little section right here, a lot of good players. We got Andreescu coming back. We got Cornet playing her last match. Zheng, who's been playing really well this year. She's going to win a couple of matches, but I do think that Sorana is going to make it to the quarters here. She's going to meet Rybakina in the quarters, and Rybakina is going to win that match and make the semis. And on the very bottom, I have Sakkari coming through the quarters against Sabalenka. I think this section right here is going to have a lot of interesting matches. And I did pick Irani to win a couple of matches. She came from the qualifying, but I don't think that she will beat Keys in the third round. All right, now let's take a look at the semis. I have Iga beating Coco, and I have Rybakina beating Sabalenka. See, Rybakina is a little bit of a question mark because she's been sick ever since Madrid, but she did win Stuttgart on clay. It was indoor clay, which suits her a little bit more than outdoor clay. And when she's on the top of her game, to me, her game is a little bit cleaner than Sabalenka's game. So for that reason, I pick her to prevail in the semifinals against Sabalenka. So in the final, I have Swiatek prevailing and winning her fourth French Open title. I just think Iga is unstoppable on clay. Roger Federer said the best players are always the best movers. She is by far the best mover on any surface, but especially on clay. During the tournament in Rome, they showed some slow-mo sequences of her movement, and it is truly spectacular. She has a lot of variety on her serve, which helps tremendously on clay, and she's got the best topspin forehand in the world. Her backhand is underrated. She can create unbelievable angles with her two-hander. For me, she is the female Rafa. She has the chance to become the greatest female clay court player of all time, and she's my pick to win the 2024 French Open. All right, now on to the men's draw, and let's get started with the top half. And you see here that I have Djokovic coming through the quarters, and a lot of people are doubting that this will happen, but I want to show you his path to the quarters. He's got Herbert in the first round. He's not going to lose that. Then he's got Carballes Baena in the second round. Djokovic is not going to lose that. And when Djokovic wins a couple of matches, I think he's going to get more comfortable. His confidence is going to grow, and he's going to be more dangerous as the tournament goes on. Now, in the third round, it's going to get a little tricky here. It's a tough little section with a lot of good players, but I have Monfils coming through that section, and there's no way that Monfils can beat Djokovic, especially in France, where there's a little bit more pressure on the French players. So I think Djokovic makes the 4th round. Now, the section beneath Djokovic is also very tough. We got Paul, we got Cerundolo, and I picked Cerundolo to come through this little section. So it's going to be Djokovic against Cerundolo in the 4th round, and I am picking Djokovic to come through that match. I think Ruud will come through this section, make the quarters, and I do think that Ruud is going to beat Djokovic in the quarterfinals. And I don't think I've ever picked Djokovic to lose in the quarters in any of my predictions, but I'm picking him to lose this year because I've been following his matches in Geneva, and while it was definitely better than the match against Tabilo, still there are so many question marks because against Mahac, Novak wasn't feeling well. It looked like he was throwing up in the first set. He was going back to shaking during the changeovers, which is something that I don't understand. This has been happening for a while. Maybe these are nerves. Djokovic said in the press conference that he was feeling horrible in the first set. He somehow wins the second set 6-0, and then in the third set, he tries really hard in the beginning, and it's a very competitive match, and then all of a sudden the third set slips away from Novak and he loses it 6-1. And towards the very end, he started playing similar to how he played against Tabilo. So to all you guys that think Djokovic threw this match because he wanted to save himself for the French Open, you don't want a match like this in your head when you're going to the French Open. Novak had all the intentions to win this match. He had all the intentions to win this tournament. He needed these match wins to get his confidence back. So there's definitely something going on with Novak. He mentioned in the press conference that it's hard to concentrate on tennis with so many things going on off the court. We don't know what those things are, but it is obvious that Novak is struggling physically, and he's also struggling mentally. Not only with the fact that he's low on confidence, but there's something else going on with Novak, and he's not playing anywhere near his top level. So it is for that reason that I'm picking Ruud to beat Novak in the quarters. Yes, Novak will collect confidence by winning those first 4 matches, but Ruud is one of the most underrated players on clay. He's one of the best players on clay. He had a good clay court season. So for that reason, I got Ruud making the semis. And now let's get to the bottom part of the draw. And this is pretty straightforward. I got Nadal going through the semis here. Not much to talk about there. Interestingly, I got Medvedev going into the quarterfinals. But in this section right here, my belief is that Medvedev will come through some of these matches. That might be tough, but I don't see any of these guys being able to take out Medvedev in a Grand Slam. The toughest match will be Mahac. This guy is a top 10 caliber player, but I do have Medvedev going in the quarters. But that's where his journey will end because I have Nadal making the semis. And look, of course, Nadal can go out in the first round in straight sets. There's no doubt about that. But I do think that there's a difference between Nadal playing at the French Open and playing at those other tournaments. And also, when it comes to Nadal's physical condition, I think that he's more willing to play through pain at the French Open than any other tournament. I read recently that Ruud saw Rafa walking on crutches after Rafa beat him in the French Open final. So this is a completely different scenario. And yes, me picking Rafa as a huge Rafa fan is a little bit of an emotional pick. A lot of people pick Rafa to lose in the first round. I don't. I think there's a very good chance that Rafa is going through to the semifinal. The bottom part of the draw is pretty straightforward. I have Tsitsipas and Alcaraz in the quarters, with Alcaraz coming through that one and making the semis. And on the bottom, I actually have Tabilo coming through the quarters against Sinner. So this is a tough little section right here with Dimitrov and Hurkacz, but Tabilo has been playing extremely well. I'm very impressed with his performance in Rome. And even prior to that, he showed some good clay court results. So I do think that he's going to make it through this little section, make the quarters, but it's going to be too much for him in the quarters against Sinner. And between Sinner and Alcaraz, I am picking Alcaraz to win this match and make the final. Nadal against Ruud will be a tough match, but I am expecting Nadal to win this one. And I had to think long and hard about this one because I almost picked Alcaraz to win his first French Open. But I changed my mind, and I think Nadal is going to win in a very tight 5-set match and win his 15th title. So will Nadal stop when he collects his 15th French Open title? I don't think so. Nadal signed up for Wimbledon, and I also think that Nadal will play next year. That is, if he doesn't re-injure himself or get a new injury. I do think that Nadal is going to try to keep going. The haters will say, Nick, this is wishful thinking. You are dreaming. And while there might be some truth to that, like I said, this is somewhat of an emotional pick. I don't want to jinx Rafa. I always pick him for the French. You never want to count out the clay court GOAT. So while it is very possible that he loses 2-2 in the first round, it is also possible that he wins the whole thing.